Welcome back, Axis and Allies players, right here straight from the nest. It's Wars of the World, the American Civil War. Stay tuned. Hi, guys. So the next series is the American Civil War, and there's going to be a lot to it, but just so you guys know, it's going to start off kind of the same as the other videos, but it's very obtuse compared to what we've done before. It was a live game playthrough with both Nato and I playing as the Union and the Confederate States of America, and it got pretty intense, especially at the end. So stay tuned because it's really exciting and very, very, very tight-knit and very close. So it was a very intense game. So coming up next is the introduction. And of course, starting, it's me and Nato will be taking helm with the camera. But just, watch it through because it's definitely not something we've done before. So it's really, really fun. And I will see you guys later. Take it easy. Bye, everybody.
Hi guys, welcome back to the nest. It's Wars of the World, and it is my personal favorite war of this entire series. It's the American Civil War. Now there's a few things in history that are going to be put to rest during our video, and a lot of that is why the Civil War happened in the first place. I'm going to start off with a couple of the rules and some of the technologies, and then we'll get into a lot of that history information that is going to hopefully lay down some basis for why we're doing this game and why it happened at all. So in this, there are a couple of national objectives. I am going to be playing as the Confederate States of America, and NATO is going to be playing as the Union. The Confederacy, we have to maintain New Orleans, the Carolinas, and for each of those we get 1 point, and then if we can tackle and keep any original Union territory, that will be worth 2 points with a total of 4 possible. The Union needs to take control of the Carolinas, the Heartland, New Orleans, and they must be able to blockade the coastline of the entire South, so that's 43, 71 and 72 in the sea zones. That's the Gulf of Mexico and the lower eastern Atlantic Ocean. That's it's kind of simple when you're looking at the global map, because basically you look from Virginia down to Florida and across the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico. Very, very simple to keep track of. Also 4 points available for the Union to take control and be able to win the Civil War and not have 2 different nations for America, which can affect how different wars come out. There are technologies. A universal technology is going to be the ironclads. We will have to roll for it at 8 points each. So Union and Confederates will need to roll to see if they can unlock the ironclads. Union tech that is specific to them is rifling. NATO will have to get 6 points to unlock that one. I myself will have 2 independent technologies already. That Southern Cavalry is one of them. I will get a +1 attack and defend for my Southern Cavalry. And Southern Generals, the way this one works is with my Southern Generals, so that's General Lee and a few of the other ones that we know of. Those being in play until turn 6 reduces NATO's firing power at a -1. Attack and defend, which means they can only go down to a 1. So his cavalry that would normally attack at a 2 would only be able to attack at a 1. Hospitals and hospital ships are unlocked from this point on. Railways across the global board are going to be unlocked. This is the first time they'll be introduced in the Americas. The ground combat gets one roll of the dice, and then the area is going to be contested. Naval combat is going to be to the death, or until the attacker retreats. Fortifications are give defending infantry a +1, and it requires 2 frigates to blockade those sea zones. So if NATO brings down a frigate from New York into my sea zone 43 off the coast of Virginia and North Carolina, then he's going to have another frigate in order to be able to completely blockade it. I'm going to set that down. Most of you know that I am a part of the Confederacy, not as a Southern rebellious nincompoop type thing, but as part of history. I do study it very avidly. It is one of my favorite things to study. My grandfather is from Alabama. A good portion of his family was from Alabama. Most of them are buried in Aniana, Alabama in the north, up towards Birmingham. But there's a lot of things that I want to disclose that are very mistaken about why the war started, how it started, and things like that. It wasn't about slavery. I'm going to throw that out there right away. It's not about slavery. So before anybody starts throwing hate mail at us and, disliking our channel and unsubscribing, please understand that the American Civil War was not based on slavery at first. It was added in later on. It actually started because the southern population was very minimal in comparison to the northern population, which gave them very little room in the House. So that gave them very little room to help control how states were governed and things of that nature. On an economic and political level, that gave the South very, very little voice in how things were ran. What the breaking point was when Lincoln went up against Breckinridge. And another thing I'm going to throw out there, Lincoln was a Republican, not a Democrat. Breckinridge was a Southern Democrat from Kentucky. I'm also going to throw this in there, that the Northern Democratic Party was ran by Stephen Douglas, and he only had one state. On the other side of that, we had the Constitutional Union, who had 3 states. Breckinridge had the control of 11 states, whereas Lincoln had the control of 13. Lincoln won the electoral vote, by a landslide, 1.8 million votes, in comparison to Breckinridge's 848,000. On that, I want to throw this one in there. Stephen Douglas, as a Northern Democrat, and this goes back to the fact that the South had very little government policy and very little government voice. Stephen Douglas had Missouri in his pocket for his one state, and he had 1.3 million votes. That was the last straw for the South, in causing South Carolina to secede from the Union and become the beginning of what would be the Confederate States of America. Lincoln took in the concept of that South Carolina seceded and didn't start a war at first, and things just kind of rolled into it. And after the first and second Manassas, there was some more things going on. The Union deaths were tolling in the hundreds of thousands, and Lincoln was losing the war very, very rapidly. In order to maintain political control and a reason to stay in the war, to bring the South back and make it a United States instead of 2 separate countries, that's when slavery and the Emancipation Proclamation came forth. So please understand that we are playing the Civil War as a civil war, not because I believe in slavery or because Nato believes in the North or anything like that. We are very unbiased as how this is going to go. It's going to be the roll of the dice. I might get diced, Nato might get diced. I want everyone to please understand that as the Confederate States of America, not the rebels, I am going to play as diligently as possible. I do have the rebel flag, not the Confederate States flag, available for my peace markers. I'm going to start off with 13 IPPs, and Nato starts off with 27 IPPs in the beginning of the game. He does have a severe production value over me, but that does include the fact that the industrial level and production level of the North was significantly higher than what it was at the farmlands of the South. The South did not have the cotton gin. We did not have steel mills. We did not have factories. The South did. In Lehigh Station, there was many steel factories that produced a lot of these cannons, rifles, muskets, bullets, and everything else that the North utilized in the fight for the South to become part of the United States rather than segregated away. So once the 7 states had seceded, in unison with Texas being debated on whether or not it was going to be a free or slave state, that is where a lot of this actually takes place. And depending on, again, what history book you actually open up will depict what the war was started on. A lot of base history books, slavery is the thing, and that's just the way it is. That's not me writing it. I didn't put it out there. I didn't publish it. But the way the history books actually roll is that's what happened. So, Stephen Douglas and Lincoln, both of them from Illinois, both of them over 1 million votes apiece. That's the way it was. Lincoln took office with Hannibal Hamlin as his vice president, and then the South seceded from there. We're going to start off. The South is actually going to take the first shot, and we're going to see you back here very shortly after the first round of the Civil War.
Hello everybody, this is Nato at the Nest with the spring of 1861 of the American Civil War. And before we get into that, go over some of the addition, or some of the pieces that Viper went over, and the new additions and some of the pieces that we're using. So you've seen the hospitals in the last scenario, but hospital ships have been added. So there's those right there. Coastal guns, fortifications, and we're using the patrol boat, little tabs, as ironclads. And you can get all this from historicalboardgaming.com, including those dice right there, the gray and the blue dice. You can get those there too, and using the battle dice again. We're in the Confederate battle flag from Historical Board Gaming. We're introducing paper money to this scenario because this is roughly, and keep in mind I'm saying roughly, so don't take this as exact year that this happened, but this is roughly around the time where paper money started replacing, coins, at least in large quantities, at least in America anyways. And once again, I'm going to stress roughly, so please no comments blowing up the fact that, paper money came out on blah 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 day, at 2 a.m. Thursday of last March. We're not going that detailed here. So moving on with the turn. Viper rolled for her ironclads. She rolled a 5, so she needed 8 total. So a really good roll for her. She only needs 3 more points. And then she didn't attack this turn. She just reinforced the Carolinas and Appalachia. And so then I rolled on both my techs for ironclads and rifling. Rolled a 3 on each one, so I need 5 more for ironclad and 3 more for rifling. Not that that's going to do me much good for a while, even if I get rifling, because Viper has the Southern Generals perk, which means all of my land units east of the Mississippi roll out a 1, regardless of what they are, because that's simulating that the first half of the war the Confederate generals were far superior than the Northern generals. So, Lee, Longstreet, Johnston, Beauregard, Jackson, Stewart, the list goes on. Or it wasn't really until General Meade in 1863, before the North finally got a competent general in the East anyways. In the West, they had Grant from fairly early on in the West, and say what you will, he was a good general, Sherman as well. But unfortunately for me, that's 6 turns down the road, so I'm just gonna have to suck it up till then. I did make 2 advances. I moved into the Heartlands and took that, which is undefended. Even though I'm researching ironclads, the North, when war started, the North had an ironclad-like ship in a place called Cairo, Illinois. And it wasn't a true ironclad in the sense that you think of the, like the Monitor versus the Virginia and Hampton Roads. Not that kind. This quote-unquote ironclad was really more of a steam trolley with a couple metal sheets welded to the side. So it wasn't a true ironclad. But it was the closest thing to it. So how we're doing that game-wise is the North will start off with one. The North just won't be able to make any more until they research the tech themselves. The other attack was I took the 2 infantry from Washington, went down in the Carolinas and made an attack. And that failed miserably for me. I didn't get a single hit, whereas Viper did get 1 hit. And that was it for the attack. Moved the frigate from New York down to Florida. And I bought another frigate. An infantry and a militia that I put in Chicago to cover that factory, and a cavalry and a cannon that I put in Washington. And that was it. Viper, she bought an infantry and a militia and a hospital. And that was it for the turn, so we will come back for the fall of 1861. Hello everybody, this is Nato at the Nest with the fall of 1861 in the Civil War. And yeah, Viper attacked the counterattack on the Carolinas and pushed me out of it, so kind of expected. And that was her only attack. And then she
Picked up 2 militia.
what she said.
Picked up 2 militia, an infantry, and another cannon. Placed the infantry down in the Alabama territory. 2 militia went into the Heartlands, and the cannon went into the Carolinas.
And she rolled a 4 on her tech roll, and she only needed 3. So she has ironclads now.
Which will be able to be purchased in the next round.
I took the 2 infantry in Chicago, moved them down to the Appalachia to screen Washington, D.C. in case she thinking of attacking the northern capital next turn. So with those 2 infantry there, that very overpowered cavalry, if you remember, Southern cavalry has a +1, so that would hit at a 3. So I move those 2 infantry down to make sure that cavalry cannot participate in such an attack. And that was my only attack. I moved the frigates down, get them in position for the blockade, and I purchased 2 infantry, a hospital, and a militia. I put all that in DC and a frigate. And then my tech rolls for ironclads roll a 3, needed a 5, so I only have 2 more left on that. For you said that?
No.
Oh, right. And I needed 3 for my rifling. I needed 5 for my... The hell did I have for my rifling? No,
You rolled a 2.
yeah,
So
I
you
had
need
3 for my
3.
rifling. I rolled a 2, so I need 1 more for my rifling. And then, off camera, we did make a tweak. Remember, this is all being play tested live. This is the first time we've ever done this scenario. Remember the very first video, I had moved into the Heartland because it was uncontested. We decided to, as the initial setup, add a militia, Confederate militia to the Heartland for balance reasons, and historically the Confederates did have troops operating in the Missouri area, which the Heartland's more or less is that area, more or less. You know, obviously there's Oklahoma and other places there too, but once again, this is a World War II map that we're trying to make work for an 1860s world, so bear with us. With that new setup in place, the change was I retracted my move into the Heartlands, and I kept it in Chicago to reinforce, so that's where that 2 infantry is coming from. And that was the turn, so we will come back with spring of 1862.
Hey, thanks for watching Axis and Allies players. Don't forget to hit a squat on that like button. If you'd like to see more videos just like this, go ahead and click on our subscribe button. You can view all of our other videos on our playlist right here on Viper and Nato, straight from the nest, coming at you from historical board games, Z-Man Games, Parker Brothers, Hasbro, and Wizards of the Coast. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next round.